Aloha, fellow mystics, seekers, shifters, and light guardians. My name is Brendon, aka Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, Wolf Shield, and welcome to another inspirational, soul-inspiring discussion here through Paradigm Shift Central. This is the first of what will be many to come of our very special Light Guardian roundtables. And each time that we do these, we have a new discussion topic that we explore together as community. And for this episode, I am joined off the bat by some of my good friends. We've got Elloise and Kristen. And for those of you two who are here with us, I'll just bring you guys up on camera. You guys can just kind of like wave to the audience. So thank you guys again so much for joining in. And yeah, for this one, just to kind of give a little bit of an introduction and set the stage, and then we'll be getting into the discussion topic, and we'll do a little bit of a meditation before we do that. For those of you who are on the YouTube and everything like that, please go ahead and leave some comments, drop an 1111 in the chat if you guys can confirm that you can hear us loud and clear. For those of you who are watching on TikTok or Instagram, now is the time to jump over to YouTube, click the link in my profile, and you'll see the link on YouTube there, and you can watch the stream from its proper channel. And again, with this said, I'll just kind of give a little bit of an introduction and the intention behind what the Light Guardian roundtables are about. So the concept of light guardians and light guardianship, this has been a very exciting kind of like core aspect to the bigger hero's journey that we are telling through the collective community of Paradigm Shift Central. What does it mean to be a light guardian? More or less, someone who is a light guardian is someone who is actively helping assist with the shift in consciousness. Other terms that we kind of use that are synonymous for these would be shifters, seekers, light workers, empaths, starseeds, whatever term that you choose that resonates with you. Light guardian is the one that we choose to go with, related to the context of what this circle is about and the intention of it. And so this isn't just a circle, it's a round table. And so again, the idea of calling this a round table is meant to kind of invoke that aspect and archetype from the hero's journey of it being kind of like within the Arthurian Merlin myth. And so this is about bringing together fellow light guardians for us to be able to come to this round table where we are all equal, and for us to be able to practice opening our heart and sharing pieces of wisdom, inspiration, insight, experience, to be able to help support each other, for us to be able to bring our unique perspectives into the circle so that we can recharge our spiritual batteries, so that we can learn, so that we can grow together, and so that we can walk away from this round table and bring that inspiration with us out into the world. And that is ultimately a core part of what Paradigm Shift is about. It's about encouraging people to choose to be the change that they wish to see. So with that said, the Light Guardian roundtables, again, we're going to kind of rotate through a series of discussion topics. We're planning on doing this right now within the schedule that I've set up every 2 weeks. And this is going to alternate every week between this and our Conscious Media Creator circles as well. So we're going to Light Guardian Roundtable and then Conscious Media Creator Dojo. And so again, the Conscious Media Creator Dojos, for those of you who are conscious media creators, those are something that you guys can be a part of as well. And for anyone in the community, for those of you who want to be able to be a part of these circles, to be a part of the discussion, to practice stepping into your own role of leadership, this is something that you can not only tune into on YouTube, obviously, but you can also be a part of by joining in on the Patreon. And again, the Patreon, you can check that, the link in the info for this video, patreon.com/Brendon Cullison. And then through there, with an $11 monthly contribution, you can join in for this and ongoing events, plus lots of other cool stuff that I'll tell you guys more about later, including the Awakening Anthology short stories series that Lacey and I are working on, which I'm very excited to tell you guys a little bit more about as we go. So with that said, we'll get into the discussion topic after we do a quick little meditation. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning in on any platform that you happen to be listening to. It's been a while since we've kind of like gotten back into doing these broadcasts. And for me, it's a part of the journey. As many of you know, the past while, it's been me adjusting to my new role as a father, and then balancing that as a creator and an entrepreneur, and having to kind of like allocate my focus in a few different directions. But being able to return to these community events is always something very important to me. And part of the intention of these community events is to be able to help kind of each of us step into our own role of leadership, which we'll be talking more about. And so I know that for many of us right now, like, community is something that we are constantly seeking. It is something that serves us. It is something that charges us up. It is something that nurtures a part of our soul. And so for me, creating community circles, physical and digital, it's been something I've been doing for well over a decade now. And it's something that I'm always called back to. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys once again. And if anything, just be able to think of this as almost like a practice round. This is us just kind of warming up, getting back into the rhythm. So we may not have the whole squad here, but even just with the three of us who we have right now, and those of you who are tuning in live or afterwards, that is enough. We are here right now. and that is enough. So let's take those steps forward together. So with that said, let's get into a quick little meditation, and then we'll dive into the discussion topic of leadership. And again, all the links you need for this are in the info for this video. Thank you guys again. And for everyone here, go ahead and get nice and comfortable. And we'll just do a very short, gentle meditation to start things off and to set the intention and drop into our heart space. Reminder again, for those of you on TikTok and Instagram, you guys are welcome to join in on YouTube. Go ahead and click the link on my profile. So, all right. With that said, when you're ready, go ahead and gently close your eyes. With our eyes closed, let us begin to bring awareness to our breath. Soft, gentle inhales and soft, gentle exhales. Continuing to find the rhythm of our breath, allowing the softness to just give us this opportunity to just relax into the present moment. Maybe meditation hasn't really been at the top of your list lately, but that's okay. Just giving yourself this opportunity to just be here now. And as you breathe here, with each inhale and exhale, just relaxing your body, straightening up your spine, relaxing your shoulders, relax your face, just arriving into your heart space. Just taking a moment here and to be able to just reflect on gratitude for yourself, for showing up to this circle, gratitude for the community, gratitude to all the other light guardians who are here with us, and gratitude for the wisdom we are here to share. And with this gratitude in our hearts, let us gently begin by imagining us sitting here at the round table or sitting in a circle. The round table is more of a metaphor. It doesn't have to be literal. And as we sit here in this circle, let us just imagine each of us just kind of in this circle together, not just the people on this broadcast, but those of you who are tuned in and listening, you're a part of this circle too. And each of us just kind of taking this opportunity to look around the circle and to just kind of see the faces, to see the eyes, to see the reflections and the mirrors that we are of each other, shining back our wisdom. And as we just hold space here within the circle, if you want to gently even put your hands on your chest or your heart, you're more than welcome to. And just take a moment here to just breathe into your own moment of oneness. So I'll stop talking and just take this opportunity. Give yourself permission in this scene, in this setting, with this intention, seeing the other light guardians here of the circle, holding gratitude in our hearts, and even just speaking words of kindness to each of the people here. Go ahead within your own moments, just drop into a place of silence, drop into your heart, and just connect into this moment of oneness. Go ahead. As you breathe here, just take an opportunity to just be able to communicate anything from your heart to the circle, to the collective. What is something that you would like to be able to say? Perhaps something in theme with the concept of leadership to all the people who are here listening and a part of this circle. Beautiful. Whatever you said, just kind of hold that. If you want, you can share it in the chat or in the comments afterwards. And from here, just take another look around, seeing all these beautiful, inspired souls with us here tonight, today, in this moment. And we'll hold this image within our hearts as we continue here within this discussion, as we drop into this shared vibration. And so when you're ready, you can just straighten up your spine a little bit more. We'll just take a couple more deep breaths here together. Deep inhale. Nice soft exhale, bit of a sigh. One more inhale. Nice big exhale. When you're ready, gently open your eyes, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. For those of you who are here, again, live or afterwards, if you guys want to leave a comment, what was something that you guys kind of typed into the chat? And then from there, we'll get right into our discussion topic tonight. So the thing that kind of came up to me was basically like the phrase, like, thank you for leading in your own way. And I think that is something that we can talk a little bit more about tonight, is that leadership is a very flexible thing. It's not just like a one type of leadership for everyone. Everyone's kind of got their own concepts of how leadership can be brought out. So beautiful. All right. So with that said, let's get into the discussion. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. And yeah, thank you for being a part of this very special Light Guardian Roundtable. So starting off with the discussion topic of leadership. And again, the reason why I wanted to be able to choose this topic is, for me, leadership is, again, like something over the past little while that I've kind of had to explore in new ways. Not only leadership within community and how I show up as that, and how in some ways there's an absence of that, and hence why I'm choosing to step back into it now, but also, me stepping into my leadership roles as a father, as a part of a family unit and everything like that. So I've been able to kind of like explore different concepts of leadership, some of which were entirely new to me. But for me, the concept of being able to discuss leadership is actually, again, very important, because I want to be able to invite each of us to begin to reflect on how we can continue to gently and softly step into our own roles as leaders, and what we look for in leadership, and how we can kind of continue to reflect that back upon one another. So even before this discussion, I was talking with Lacey about this, and I'll just speak for a minute here, and then I'll pass it over to Elloise and Kristen, and we'll just kind of pass the talking stick around. But for me, when me and Lacey, when we were talking, I was like, what does a good leader mean to you? And like, what does leadership mean to you? And she's like, leadership to me is someone who's willing to do the things that others won't. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that's a good answer, right? A leader will often be the one who is kind of like walking a path that has not been walked before, or carrying a task that not everyone wants to be able to carry. And it's true that, like, being a leader is at times very hard, challenging, various degrees of challenge involved with being a leader. It's easy to kind of like step back and just say like, oh, like I'm just gonna go along with the flow and observe and be a witness. And at times, like, that's still totally a part of the journey. And even from that place, we can still contribute to the bigger dynamics and everything like that. And I think leadership does play a role even in the hierarchies of leadership. But at the same time, it's like choosing to be a leader, whether it's chosen or whether it's something kind of like thrusted upon us through the fate and will of our destiny, so to speak. It's something that will often put us into situations that are expanding our growth, that are uncomfortable. And I talked to Lacey about this, and I'm like, and she was just like, like, for her, the idea of being a leader is challenging, because it kind of like puts us on a pedestal. Sometimes it puts us under the eye, it puts us under the microscope. And then from that place, it's very easy for people to kind of like, like judge you, not just in like a negative way, but in a critical way, to be able to hold you up to a standard. And some people, they're just like, oh, like, I don't know about that, like that can kind of like bring up insecurities and triggers and everything. And I think that's totally normal. And then at the same time, it's like, as we evolve through our roles as leader, it's also being able to choose to step into those spaces where we know it may be uncomfortable, where we're putting ourselves into a place of vulnerability, but we are also marrying ourselves to a higher vision, to a higher ideal. And we don't put ourselves before like the mission sort of thing. It's not just like it's not just what you're getting out of it. It's like the mission that you're carrying. What are you leading people to? And that's the whole point, right? Like, a leader is not just someone who's just going to take people around in circles and lead them nowhere. A leader is someone who is taking people to a place, taking them to a new destination. And if you're just like, well, I'm married to the concept of reaching this destination, then that means I know that I'm going to have to maybe get a few scrapes and bruises along the way, and a few scrapes and bruises to my ego along the way. But if you're open to that, if you're receptive to that, and if you have a community that can offer that critical support and constructive feedback for leadership, it helps us grow, and it helps us be humble and stuff. And then the other thing I'll just say, and then I'll pass this over to Kristen or Elloise, and whoever wants to go next, just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll pass it over to you guys. Another key thing, and I'll let you guys kind of dive into this as well, opposed to me just talking all about it now. Another good thing that makes a good leader, and this is something that Lacey brought up, is listening. like a good leader isn't someone who's just talking. It's someone who is listening. And I think that is very cool, because like a leader is someone who can kind of like help lead people back to their own heart space. And one of the ways that we can do that is by creating space through an act of leadership to say, I'm going to create this container. I'm going to intentionally create a space, create a container. And in that container, I'm inviting you, I'm leading you, gently leading you to be able to open your heart, sort of thing. So again, leadership looks so many different ways in so many different contexts. And yes, we'll be talking about it within, kind of like the spiritual community concept, but even just bigger than that as well. So Kristen and Elloise, who would like to be able to go next? And again, for anybody, we'll pass it to Elloise. For anybody, again, who's within our community, who is our Patreon members, who's watching this broadcast live, you guys are more than welcome to tune in on Zoom as we go. Again, the link for that is already posted into the Patreon, as well as posted into the Discord server for our members. And if you guys aren't able to join this one, I hope you guys get to join in for future circles as well. So Elloise, thank you so much for joining. And when you're ready, I'll pass the talking stick over to you, and tell us a little bit about what comes to mind when you think of leadership. Welcome. Go right ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Brendon. And thank you so much for the space for bringing us all together here and creating the space for us, this container, as you put it. And so first, I just wanted to say, like, the message that I got regarding leadership for the collective during our meditation was, if not us, who else? And so I think that spoke to me in a way where it's like, I think we all can very easily question our abilities to lead. Those insecurities, like you said, can pop up very quickly when we're put into that position, but who else is going to do it? So if we're feeling that calling, I think that's really important, to follow that calling and follow our hearts into that space. Because if we don't do it, who else is going to? And I think not just for the sake of leading, but also knowing who we are and the good that we want to produce and elicit in this world. If we're not going to do that, then there are negative forces that can do that instead. And so, if we're being called to bring our good into the world, then I think that is a really wonderful thing that we can offer to not just ourselves, but to future generations. And I love that you brought up River, Brendon, because I have recently been watching a neighborhood kid. He's like 6 and he is just so awesome. And it's like changed my life in such a inspiring way to have this connection with this little guy and becoming friends with him. And then also, kind of seeing myself more as a leader to the next generation. And thinking about the next steps in my own life and having kids and what that would mean to me and to the next generation. And I had that was never really something that I thought about a lot, but it's definitely becoming something that I think will be important to me to pursue in my life, which is really interesting and a change of pace. But it's that vision. It's kind of like leading the next generation to that vision of the world that I see in my own mind and that I know is possible, but we're not there yet. And we need to be able to bring those next generations into that world with us and show them that it's possible so that they can become the leaders that will surpass us once, our time on this physical plane has come to an end. So I'll just end it with that right now. That's kind of where I'm at with leadership in this moment. And so I think, we're all kind of on the, I feel very on the same page with you, Brendon. And I'm just very grateful to be here again and be back and see everyone and talk to everyone again after a while. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie. And yeah, absolutely 100% agree. And Kristen, I'll pass it over to you in a second, where, again, some interesting points that just got me thinking. And, like, again, with leadership, it's like, we're carrying visions, we're literally carrying visions, we're carrying stories. And I think for a lot of us who, have kind of like gotten involved within this conscious community sort of mythos and everything like that, like many of us, we all hold this vision of a better world. We see things going on in the world that we don't fully agree with. It's like, there must be a better way, there must be a better way, there must be a better way. And again, it's this idea that it's just like, that better way does not simply just like emerge out of nothingness. It emerges out of the will to want to be able to bring it forth. And so it's like, how do we bring that new world into being? It's like, we literally carry it. We carry it through our visions, we carry it through our words, we carry it through our humility, through our authenticity, through our expressions, through our creativity. So again, like leadership, sometimes leadership can look like speaking into a room of 100 people and giving some big boisterous, like super inspirational talks kind of thing. I think of like Charlie Chaplin and the great speech that he gives in that old video, The Great Dictator is the name of the movie and stuff, which is like totally, it touches people's heart and there's like, oh my God, and it inspires them and it helps them see, and they're just like, oh, I can relate, and I want to get like, riled up and do something about it. But at the same time, it's like nowadays leadership has kind of entered into this new place where suddenly the stage is our social media content. It's the opportunity for us to be able to kind of always willingly kind of like put ourselves onto a stage. And then at that point, it's just, what is the message? What are we telling to people, right? Knowing that even through the ways that we post things, like 20 people are going to see our thing, 30 people, 100 people. And then at that point, I think with leadership, there's a kind of a variety of exploration, but then over time it kind of evolves into also intention and like influence. And so what is the influence? And again, going back to what you said about the next generation, it's like, how do we lead by example? We lead through our expressions. And I think that for anyone here, regardless of whether you have a social media profile with thousands of followers or you're giving speeches or anything like that, if you are a friend to someone, if you are a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, a son, whoever you are, the context of being a leader and the archetype of being a leader does not escape you. You are a leader to your children. You are a leader to your neighbor. You are a leader by example. You are a leader to that person who's standing behind you in line, who you have a conversation with, whatever the case may be, right? So it's like, nowadays it's like, and sorry, I know I'm just kind of going here, and I'll pass over to Kristen. It's kind of like the lack of wanting to be a leader has actually sort of created this pandemic that we're in. And I use the term pandemic in like a broader sense, not just COVID or anything, but this pandemic of kind of like people keeping to themselves and closing themselves off and not communicating to other people, sort of thing. It's just like people like don't want to deal with other people's shit at all. Like they just like, I got enough stuff going on, I'm just going to stay in my box, stay in my bubble. But again, it's like being a leader is kind of the person who kind of like steps out of that and it's just like, hey, like, let's do more. Let's have a conversation. Let's engage. Let's interact. Get out of the box. Get out of the norm. Get out of the shell. Get out of the chain, sort of thing, and begin to liberate ourselves. I'd say a good leader is ultimately someone who is leading people towards their own freedom, who is leading people towards their own more liberties, and emancipation in a lot of ways. So I think that's even with a lot of what we're doing as conscious creators and, like just people in general, it's like we see people and they're just like enslaved by programs and their own thought processes and limiting beliefs. And here we are, maybe we've tasted a different way and we don't even have like the full thing ourselves yet, but we know there's something else there. We know it. We've seen it. We've tasted it. We've heard others talk about it. And we want to be able to help offer it to other people to say like, look, like there is a magic to this world. I'm here to be able to help lead you to it so that you can see it with your own eyes. So at that point, I'm not even having to tell you, but at least I'm leading you to it, sort of thing. Anyways, Kristen, we'll pass it over to you. Enjoying the conversation so far, and thank you again. And for those of you in the comments, please feel free to leave your comments. Quick comment from my TikTok from We Are One says authenticity and humility, I think, are huge parts of being a leader. For those of you in the YouTube, what do you think leadership means? Like, what does it mean to you? Go ahead and read those comments, and we'll read them after Kristen. Kristen, I'll pass it over to you. Great to have you back. And when you're ready, what do you think of leadership when we dive into this discussion together? Go ahead, Kristen. Welcome.
Hello, Brendon, and thank you so much for hosting this space. And hi to all the other amazing, beautiful souls here tonight. Weezy, it's been really great seeing you and catching up with you as well. So I love, Brendon, what you started off with being able to say that leadership is about being able to do what needs to be done, right? It's like being able to stand up and say, I see this thing that we all can see, but I'm going to take the first steps to get there. It doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to be the one to change the whole thing or fix the whatever you see, but being able to be the one to say, I see this. Let's all see this together. And I wanted to share an example of something I saw when I was on a hike one time, and I saw a flock of geese. And if you know geese, they fly in a V formation through the sky. Lots of them, could be probably 20 geese in the flock. And I noticed the flock of geese were flying, and then there were just 2 geese that had kind of fallen away from the main flock, like significantly, probably miles away from the other group. But you could tell that they maintained their portion of the V formation. Like the one that was, there were 2. So the one that was in the lead acted as though it was still part of the original formation, even though it was essentially leading the other one. But the one behind it didn't know the difference. It didn't even know it was lost. It didn't even know that it had fallen behind, because the one in front of it was leading the way back to the flock. And so I always really like to be able to imagine being a leader is that it's like we're kind of all leading each other back to the wisdom that we have within. But sometimes it's important to be the one to take up and take that action, or speak the words, or lead by example, or being able to embody a new mindset, like whatever it is for you. Everybody leads in their own way, or being an amazing mother, or being a transformational family. Like there's all kinds of ways that it can happen. But yeah, I love this topic, and I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you, Brendon.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, just as we're talking about it here again, just kind of like opening up into more of what leadership is, what it means, what it can mean. It's interesting. And I did this just out of curiosity. I was like, oh, okay, I go to thesaurus.com and I type in leadership, and I'm looking at some of the other words there. And a lot of the other words are like, let's just take a moment here to just kind of like look at some of them. So I'm not going to read all of them, but some of the words that are synonymous for leadership, and there's quite a few. And it's interesting because there's kind of like a spectrum. There's kind of like heart-oriented leadership, and then there's kind of like almost like a more self-centered version of leadership. So some of the words that come up are captainship. So like the idea of, again, kind of like being the captain of a ship, getting someone to their destination. And we talk a lot about that, again, within Paradigm Shift Central, captains amongst captains. The other words that are literally here are care, which is interesting, like leadership. And then a synonymous for leadership is just care. So to care for someone, to care for example, like to be the leader of a garden, right? Like a garden needs tending to, it needs stewardship. You care for it. So if you are leading something, it means that you are putting your heart into something. And then I think with leadership, it's, depending on the circumstances, oftentimes it is a recurring thing. It is something you come back to. It is something you step into. Maybe you step away from it for a bit, and then you come back to it. So, like a garden sort of thing, you're going to kind of tend to it now and then. With anything, it's not going to be something that you're literally going to be doing 24/7 necessarily. But even still, it's something that you can kind of like come and go back to. But it's more about like the care that you have for something over a bigger story. Other words that come to mind are coaching. Again, we hear the term coaching thrown around a lot. But again, for me, I think of like hockey coach and like the fact of like how a good coach would be someone who would like motivate and bring people together and help them like really, like if you think of stories of, like even I think of like Rudy or, Disney movies or even personal stories that people have, a good coach will help a young athlete, let's say an athlete in this context, like really feel that they are capable, and I think that's what a leader is. A leader is someone who helps change the story that someone may be living. So, you might have a young student, and again, like using youth as a good example, because that's when the leadership that they are around is something that imprints on them. And so when you think about it, like a young student, and I can speak to this, from example, I'm sure all of us can relate to this in some way. You might have had that one teacher who just didn't really care, or maybe they even kind of like said something, or they just weren't really a good teacher, or maybe they were just having a bad day or something like that. And they probably just made you feel stupid. And they were just like, oh, like I'm not enjoying this sort of thing. But then you get those other teachers and they take that extra time to be able to talk to you, to listen to you, and to really just be able to offer you those words of encouragement, like kind of like the love language of like acts of kindness and stuff. And then out of that, what does that leadership do from that teacher to that student? It sparks something inside of them, So I think that's what we're working towards doing as leaders. We're working towards sparking something inside of other people, something that we can see in them that they don't always see in themselves. So a leader is someone who has a keen sense of perception. They can see the future. They can vision the future. They think in potentials. And then they kind of start from where they are and they move through the present motions. The other words, and I might not go through all of them, but I'll just read through a few in a row. Direction, encouragement, stuff that we've already talked about. Now, this is interesting. Guardianship, literally the word guardianship is synonymous with leadership. So it's like, here we go. This is what does being a guardian mean? Again, a guardian is someone who stands for something. So when we talk about leadership and guardian, like guardianship, we are talking literally for us stepping into this archetype, this role, to be able to say, this is what I stand for. I stand for a kinder vision of the world, a kinder vision of community, helping people step into their potential, leading people back to the wisdom of their own heart so that they can tap into their own internal leadership, their own internal intuition, their divine intelligence that's inside of them that maybe no one has talked to them about before. Other words would be initiative, navigation, overseeing, piloting, shepherding, steering, stewardship, superintendence, some other word, supervision, tutelage, yada, yada, yada. But then you get into these other terms of leadership where you start getting into words such as dictatorship and governance and government. And I think a lot of those kind of have like this kind of like negative connotation to them. Now, I think, again, like the term government, which we often associate with leadership, literally breaks down into like government, and like coming from Latin or wherever it is literally to like govern the mind. It literally, the word means mind control. So I think it's interesting because like when we're talking about leadership, one way to be able to understand what good leadership is to look at what we identify as being bad leadership. And you think of like those politicians who, a news reporter would ask them a very important question. And if they didn't want to answer it, what do? They get all sly and they just kind of like give this like word vomit, and then they redirect it and they just don't answer the question at all, but then they keep on smiling. And then something inside of us is just like, wait a second, like that wasn't cool. That was like a little fishy and stuff like that. And then right away, our brain knows that like that is not good leadership. But at the same time, other people would be like, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for, sort of thing. So it's weird. Like leadership is kind of the subjective thing, sort of thing. Maybe we'll get into that another day. But then again, other words related to leadership would also be authority, command, domination, dominion, power, reign, rule. So you can see how there's kind of like almost kind of like like this yin and yang terms of leadership, where some people, they can take leadership as a place of power to dominate people. But then I think the true form of leadership is leadership that holds people up. So like there's leadership that will like keep people down, and there's like, oh, I'm helping you, and they tell you that it's for your best, it's for your it's for your health and safety, sort of thing. But then you get other people that are helping lift you up. It's kind of like that. You guys have seen that meme of leadership where it's like, you know, one person behind a crowd and they're like, go this way, and they're like pointing over the crowd, and then there's like another picture and it's like that same leader, but he's like at the front and he's like this way, and he's literally, you know, taking the lead sort of thing. So a good leader is someone who doesn't just, you know, lead by their words, but leads by their actions as well. So I think for us as leaders, you know, it's like, it's easy to be able to kind of like talk and say all of these cool things, but how do we balance that with the action? And sometimes that doesn't come right away. Sometimes, you know, like we almost have to kind of like speak into existence what that leadership is going to look like for us, where, you know, we kind of have to go through a phase where the action kind of comes after the words, and it's becomes a practice and a routine. And I think it is. I think leadership is something that it's like a muscle. You have to learn how to use it. And a lot of people, like I said, they don't really have the space, the opportunity, nor the encouragement to kind of step into those roles of leadership, and therefore they don't really have much experience with it. And then it kind of, you know, just kind of comes this thing that's secondary. And then what do? Well, if anything, they become exactly what the Rothschilds want you to be, which is like just like a slave and a consumer to the corporations and stuff like that, which is like, again, like leadership, sovereignty, which is another word. Like leadership and sovereignty go hand in hand. It's exactly what the powers that be don't want you to have, so to speak. Not to get into full conspiracy mode here, but yeah, again, I'll just passing the talking stick around. You guys, as soon as you have something that you feel on your heart, we'll just pass the talking stick to anybody else. And again, just diving deep into, you know, what are good examples of leadership that you can, that maybe you've experienced, even like literally just like share with us a story. Like was there a time when you met someone who you thought of as like someone who was a good leader for you and they really inspired you? And what did that look like? Maybe we can kind of like use that to look at some examples and again, continue to learn from that. So Kristen or Elloise, if either of you want to jump in, feel free, and pass over to you. Kristen, go for it. Oh, hold on, Kristen, just double check the microphone. Over to Kristen.
No, Weezy. I think.
Oh, Weezy. Do you want to go? Sure.
Yeah.
Go for it, Weezy.
I don't have a story about somebody else, but actually like of myself and how I've kind of like learned how I'm leading in a way recently. And so I have it right here. So I think I've worn this on a live before, but I got my like little witch's hat, and like I've been like wearing it out and doing, you know, like going places and doing things and wearing it. And there was one place I went, you know, I was like out for the night and I was in the bathroom. I was just like doing my thing and washing my hands and whatnot. And this lady who was like, also in the bathroom was like, she's like, I love your hat. Like, it's so cute and your outfit is great. And like, she's like, I also have a witch's hat, but I like have never worn it out before. Like, I'm too scared to do it. And I was like, I just looked at her and I was like, do it, man. Like, go for it. Like, be yourself, like do what feels fun for you. And so I've kind of like seen, yeah, like you said, like that action and almost like embodying like who I want to be has forced me into that leadership role of teaching other people to be themselves, their true selves, and embodying like their truth and their authenticity. And so that was like a really eye-opening experience for myself, and how like just the smallest little actions can help change somebody else in a way that you never really like envisioned. And so I also like what Daniel was saying, how like planting the seeds for people, how we can be like that inspiration. I think that is kind of like very synonymous with what I was talking about in that story. And just, you know, leading, like you said, leading with our actions, and how just even the smallest thing, like we don't even know what we're inspiring other people to do with those. And so I've been trying to do that more so, and I've actually like gotten such positive feedback from so many strangers just by doing like, just by wearing hats that I like, you know, it's just like, so like I got another hat that I like and like keep getting compliments on that too. And so it's like, I'm starting to enjoy like being the little weirdo that I am and inspiring other people to be their own like weirdo selves as well. And so I just like really like that. And I think that that's a story that I had that like fits into what you were saying very well, Brendon. And then one last thing is that I just thought it was really interesting, like how the duality of leadership, like how the different, like the bad and like the negative versus the positive types, and like just goes to show another like dualistic thing about this like existence that we're living, and how we can like focus our shift to the more positive things and the more positive ways of leadership, and that like what can that do in the world as a whole once we like change that focus and that perspective of like what leadership truly is to us.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Weezy. And I agree that hat looks great on you. So very, very natural, brings out the witchy vibes just in time for the Halloween season and beyond. So that's awesome. Yeah. I'll hold my thoughts on that. Kristen, did you want to go, and then we'll just keep bouncing things around, and shout out to those of you in the YouTube chat. We got some familiar faces there. If anybody wants to join, links in the Discord for those of you who are members. Go ahead, Kristen, pass over to you.
First, I just wanted to say so much gratitude to you, Weezy, for being so brave and wearing your witch hat out in public. You have no idea how many people you just absolutely inspired and brought joy to in that day. I'm sure it was gorgeous. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, I love being able to see people share their expressions. Like, my favorite is for my elf ears, but like incognito, I'll totally dress like a normal person, but just have my elf ears and like go to the grocery store. And then like no one will notice except for like the little 3-year-old walking down the aisle. And then the checkout clerk who has been like scanning all day, you know, and it's always the best. You never know who you're going to get the opportunity to bring a smile to. And yeah, highly recommend sharing your magical side in the world. But yeah, I wanted to bring in the element of the importance of authenticity and leadership, because I think there's a lot of ways that we can lead, and being able to adapt and be your authentic self, either within your own spaces or with the people that you're connected with, it relieves a certain tension that just sits. You know, it's like if you and a group of people are all enjoying a space together and you're vibing and it's all good, and someone's like, yeah, and then somebody else is like, yeah, and then we all start dancing because it's good. It's the same thing if there's like a funky energy in the room and like something's weird, maybe somebody said something and it's like, okay, we can just all accept that and connect and share, then it ends up being a growing experience for everybody. So that's one thing I wanted to share too. But Brendon, you asked about different experiences that we've had with leaders, and I had like a million different ideas come to mind because I feel like I've gotten the beautiful blessing of having so many amazing leaders in my life. But the one, Elloise started talking about her hat, and I was like remembering Brendon doing his free hugs in his Mystic Spider-Man outfit. And I was just like, Brendon, you have been such an inspiration in so many ways for me in my journey. I know when I met you, I was just like, I don't even know if I can make a post that will make people smile, but sure, I'll try. And it's been really beautiful just being able to do that and see you being able to lead by example in all the many ways that you do. So thank you for being a divine leader and being able to be your authentic self and your magical, amazing self and share your inner wisdom. And, you know, I think there's a lot to be said to be able to just show up in our path for exactly where we are and to meet people where they are as well. And so, yeah, thank you for doing that. And I just think that's an amazing quality for leaders, and being authentic is irreplaceable. I will tell you guys, I did retail management for like 9 years, And in the span of that time frame, the employees that I had that I was able to just be like 100% real with was always the best team, because everybody just, we had this element of just being able to be like, you know what, we all understand this underlying truth that exists, and we've connected on that level. So what can we accomplish when we come together and share that vision together? So thank you. And I just wanted to shout out to all the Soul family. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. And thank you, everyone. I appreciate the kind words, Kristen, because again, you know, like honestly, like choosing to pick this topic and everything for this community, as I alluded to, for this discussion circle, as I alluded to earlier, was one where I'm just like, I feel like this is something that is needed. This is something that is needed for community, but it's also needed for myself. Because if some of you have seen some of my posts and everything like that, like that's something that I've kind of been struggling with, where, you know, like prior to, you know, like being a full-time dad and everything like that, so much of my focus was like, you know, like the back in the years from like 2012 to 2022 and everything like that, I was just free to just, if I had something I wanted to do, I would just do it. And if you guys know me, you know, it's kind of like this thing where it's just like if I have an idea, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to create something. I'm going to, you know, just like bring it into the world and do whatever I do, whether that was, you know, like doing free hugs, making like cool videos, going out as like Mystic Spider-Man and everything like that, hosting all these community events, and always holding this like vision in my mind of like knowing that me doing this was to, you know, it's kind of the mythos of like, it was like I was embodying the superhero archetype to be able to help others to embody their superhero archetype within their selves as well. If it's in me, it's in you. That was the basic idea. It was never, hey, like this is me putting myself on a pedestal, but it was this axiom that I live by, that as the water rises, so does every ship. And over the past while, like with me being a dad and everything like that, and just taking on more responsibilities with having to balance income and work on the side and stuff, it's been something where it's just like, you know, like even with COVID, it's like, you know, I haven't done, like, I haven't been out there doing free hugs in the same way. I haven't been online in the same way. I haven't been hosting events in the same way. And then so a part of me is just kind of like feeling like this leadership quality of myself just slowly kind of atrophy. And I think that for me has been kind of a struggle, where it's like, you know, if I'm not keeping up on top of it, if I'm not keeping up with my presence, and if I'm not being seen, then what am I? You know, like am I still a leader? And you know, fortunately, because of the internet, people can go back and watch a video from 5 years ago and it can still be brand new to them. And I think that's a beautiful thing for any of us, where something we've created in the past is suddenly relevant in the present. And, you know, lo and behold, it still inspires people through space and time. But yeah, like even for myself, you know, like I went out and like prior to in July, I actually went out and I went downtown and I did my Mystic Spider-Man thing. I didn't wear a mask. I just kind of like wore the suit, and I just felt, I'm like, I just didn't really want to wear a mask. And I wanted to be able to like see people. And it was at like my friend's event downtown. And I was like doing like lightsaber spinning and doing free hugs. And a lot of people were coming up and they were like, just like, really just like vibing, and they were just like, oh, this is awesome, thank you so much. And I was like, holy shit, like I needed this so much, and I hadn't done it in so long. And then like a week later, Lacey and I got COVID. And then it's kind of like this thing where it's just like, oh man, like did me doing free hugs was like, did I bring COVID into the house? And I don't know if I did. Like I'm not 100% certain whether or not I did. But at the same time, like now there's like still just kind of like this caution. There's still like this kind of like residual kind of like hesitancy, where a part of me like wants to go out and do free hugs downtown and stuff. And maybe I will soon, or maybe I'll find other ways to do it. But then at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm busy with family and I'm busy with responsibilities and stuff. And it's just kind of like, you know, even with all the stuff that I was doing, I knew there was a lot of things where it's just like, it wasn't going to be something that I'd be able to do forever necessarily. It would kind of come and go in waves. But within that time, I was like, look, like even if I'm not able to do it, one of us can, some of us can. I pass the torch. A single candle, like a single flame can light a million candles. And honestly, over the past, you know, like months that I've been so busy, but what's really inspiring for me is that I still see so many leaders picking up the torch online through this digital community, not just Paradigm Shift, like much broader than that. And so that's where, you know, in some ways, it's just kind of, you know, from someone who came from back in the days of creating content where the conscious creators and the spiritual creators was not a big group. It was literally just, you know, like I could literally almost count how many of us there were. And then slowly it's build and build and build and build and build. And then it kind of got to the point where, you know, I'm just like, yes, this is awesome. And then at the same time, it was like, oh, like now I can step back. Like the work is still being done. The mission is still being carried, even if I'm not the one actively doing it through my online presence as a leader in the community. And that's where I really had to kind of like meditate on this and just be able to kind of like relax into where I was being called. And where I was being called was into family, into raising River, into taking care of Lacey. And that for me is still a part of my journey. And now kind of like as things are balancing out, you guys can see like this is where I'm making my way back, you know, like I'm trying to find that balance where it's balancing the family and balancing all those things that I love to be able to do as a leader, as Brendon, while still finding, you know, the time for both in a way. And I'm still figuring out what that looks like. And literally me saying these words right now is me figuring it out. Us having this conversation is me figuring it out in the same way that I hope, you know, those of you listening to this are also a chance for all of us to just kind of reflect on, you know, the ways leadership kind of waxes and wanes within our reality. But I think at the end of the day, at the same time, you know, leadership, like we said, it functions in different forms. It can be leadership where you are addressing a group and speaking to a group and putting yourself out there. But at the end of the day, I think the most important form of leadership is the leadership of oneself, the internal governance, the self-awareness, the consciousness that we are cultivating within ourselves. Because I think there are times where, and I've experienced this, where like, you know, like our will can falter. It kind of waxes and wane, our energy, our drive, our focus, we get depleted, we get depression and kind of things like that. And then even in those moments, we have to make a choice to lead ourselves into a new space, to be like, well, do I want to stay like this or do I want to change it? What do I need to do? And this is actually a very important thing that I'll just say, and then I'll pass it around to whoever wants to talk. And if this resonates with you guys, feel free to let me know. But, you know, for me, being a leader, this is actually very, very key. And I've thought about this like way before, not just right now. For me, being a leader is you know how I talked earlier about listening. Being a leader is one who listens, but I'm not just talking about listening to other people. I'm literally also talking about like listening to like source consciousness, like listening to what is needed within our own hearts, you know? And I think that's very important, where sometimes, you know, the lack of leadership can be like, instead of asking ourselves and sitting deeply and being like, well, hold on, let me lead myself into a place of reflection and contemplation and reflect on my own heart space and ask myself, what do I need? And instead it becomes this thing where we just kind of like turn to the quickest vice, turn to the easy, turn to the something that we've done 100 times before, the video games, the drugs, the alcohol, the community that, you know, is just kind of like numbing us and sort of things like that. And again, not judging any of that, but at the same time, like it's moderation, right? Like all those things in moderation. But I think what we need to be able to do is lead ourselves into those internal discussions that may not be comfortable. But what is more comfortable, staying the way you are or moving through the changes that we can move into that are going to help us like lead ourselves? So, you know, like if I want to lead myself into being more physically like healthy, and if I want to lead myself into writing down my dreams, and I want to lead myself into creating sustainable income for my family and everything like that, like how am I going to get there? It's going to take work. It's going to take will, and it's going to take the conscious effort to be able to say this is something that I need to do a little bit different, but not to beat myself up over at the same time. And I think that's where, like, you know, in the same way, this is actually really key. I'm just thinking about this now. A good leader is someone who will, again, kind of like show you a reward that is achievable, and then to kind of like help you get there, both through a means of like resilience and drive and determination, but also through a means of like play and gentleness and compassion as well, right? Like I think if your example, kind of going back to like a teacher and a student sort of thing, and say for example, if like this is a metaphor I've kind of used before, if you're trying to teach someone and say like they're sitting on a stool, like they're just sitting on a stool, and as a teacher, teacher, you're trying to like, you're talking to them and be like, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. And then like the stool's rocking back and forth and this kid's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I can't fully process this. Opposed to, you know, just kind of like allowing more of this gentleness. And then at that point, the student is more actively, attentively able to process what is happening. And then they can allow themselves to turn it into action. Because if we just, you know, try and force ourselves into that change, that in itself can kind of like almost like have like opposite effect. You know, if we kind of like guilt ourselves into doing this and kind of like neglect our other needs in order to be, it's a complicated thing. But again, you know, like as much as if we want to lead others, we have to lead ourselves. It's just a part of the synergy. So at the same time, it's like, you know, like what does that look like? And so as much as I want to be able to continue to lead online, I have to be able to lead in my own heart space, in my own routines, in my own habits, in my own discipline. And I think that's a big part, is that leadership for me, a key thing with leadership is consistency and discipline. Not to the point where there's no room for like play and waxing and waning and being more flexible. But, you know, I think if you think about that, like what's an example of a good leader? Someone who says, all right, team, let's show up here 5 p.m. tomorrow. Let's do it. And then everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. And then it comes 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then that person's like, oh, sorry, something like I changed, like something else came up. Sorry, I forgot to tell you guys, yada, yada, yada. And then people are just like, what? Like, why are we going to do this twice? Like, probably not. Right. So having that sort of like ability for a leader to be able to say like, you know, like, this is what we're going to do and I'm going to do it with you. This is where we're going and I'm going to go with you, sort of thing. So having that discipline, that consistency, and that ability to be able to live a truth that you speak is super, super important. And so again, you know, like I'm saying this because like, man, like I know that for myself, like where I am and where I want to be is a journey. And I know that there's like this degree of capacity and capability that I'm still stepping into, that I'm finding balance. I'm still finding a gentleness. And for me, like I'll achieve that through different stages. But for me, it's like having that sustainable income for my family, like that's a dream, like that's a goal. That's something I'm working towards. And at the same time, doing that in a way that's synergized with serving community and being an artist and being a space holder and facilitator and everything like that. So yeah, anyways, I know that was kind of a tangent there, but yeah, like leadership within ourselves is something that we always have to be able to keep at the forefront of our journey before we can lead others while we are leading others. I don't think it needs to be this thing where it's like, oh, you can't lead others until you lead yourself. I think sometimes it goes through both. Like sometimes the opportunity to practice leading others or to practice putting yourself out there, to practice wearing a silly hat, actually inspires us to step more into that leadership. So if we can see that there's that leader inside of us and other people give that feedback and that recognition and that support, then we're like, oh, like I'm going to nurture more of that. And then it becomes a synergy. Anyways, I know both of you guys probably got something to say. Elloise, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, what I was like wanting to say actually ties perfectly into this, and bringing it back to also what you said about listening, and how I think a good leader is someone who knows when it's somebody else's turn to step up and lead as well, or how to also learn from others. Like they're not always the one leading. And so this has like been something I've been learning as I've been watching this little 6-year-old, is like there are so many times when he is leading me and I'm not always the one leading him. And there's, you know, there's a back and forth and there's a flow to it, like you said. And I also like that you kind of brought up like your own inner superhero, because I have this like once little like thing that happened was like, you know, Halloween is coming up and I asked him like, what are you going to be for Halloween? And he's like, I'm going to be a superhero. And I was like, oh yeah, which one? And he's like, no, just a superhero. And like, just like the way he said it and like what he was like trying to mean by it like, yeah, he's like leading and being his own like little superhero. And I just like love that. And it was something that I had to like learn, that like we're not always supposed to be like emulating something else. Like sometimes we can step up and be our own thing, and like we can be our own, like you said, our own inner superhero. And so I just think that that's like a really like, I don't know, it kind of circled back in the conversation of like something I experienced that like has now been brought up and almost like illuminated through this conversation to me of like how we take turns being leaders, and like you said, the waxes and wanes, and like allowing, like a good leader will sit back and allow somebody else to take the reins for a little bit, and trust that they don't have to be the one that's always leading everyone else. And another, like Kristen brought up like the thing with the geese, and I think another animal that can like, that kind of like embodies that is the sled dog, and like how like there'll be like a leader sled dog, and my dog will do this, like if there's like more than one person on the walk, like she has to be in front, she's like leading and like, you know, pulling us all along. But then if she gets tired or if she gets hurt or whatever, she'll fall back and she'll go behind who she thinks should be leading the pack. And so, you know, there's that ebb and flow of like who is ready to take over and at what time. And I think we all have our own time, and a good leader is someone who can sit back and not have to be like in the power seat all of the time.
Very, very well said. Absolutely. Yes. A good leader is one who can, again, delegate and kind of like share tasks and loads and prioritize different tasks as need be. So yes. Kristen, go ahead if you'd like to be able to jump right in, and then again, we'll just keep passing things around here.
I love what you mentioned about listening to source and being able to have that connection, Brendon. I also think it's important to be able to listen to our hearts. Our hearts tell us so much. And sometimes as a leader, our hearts tell us things that are maybe not what we want to hear, but being able to listen to that in the heart and being able to say like, right now my heart is telling me to step down in this leadership and step into a different role of leading in my own life, or whatever the case is. It's not always easy, but I think the best leaders do it with grace, and being able to be also in the opposite role of like, if you are someone who's not typically the leader, but you're really feeling in your heart, and your heart's like, yeah, come on, it's your turn. You've got this. Being able to listen to it and say, you know what? Yeah, I do. I've got this. But then there's also that element of community and support, and being able to share those and not just be like, okay, I have this heart wisdom, I'm going to keep it to myself and just make final decisions. Yes, sometimes that's necessary, but I think also understanding that whenever we are making those types of shifts, being able to include the community and allow it to be, I don't even know. I feel like it's like Elloise said, like a flow to things, you know, and I think that's why that authenticity and that openness is so important. But really being able to listen to your heart, and whenever your heart calls you in a new direction, being able to follow it in that new direction, and to trust that that new direction is going to be the perfect next steps for you in your path in life. And that if you are meant to lead in a specific way, that you will always be called back to whatever path it is that you're meant to be on. So just really finding that level of trust and listening to that inner voice.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, again, you know, I think a good trait of leaders, of leadership, is adaptability. You know, the ability to be able to have a plan, but then if things change, to be able to adapt to whatever the circumstance may be. You know, like having the ability to be able to kind of like put aside any sort of like egoic notion of how you want something to go, compared to like how something may need to go based on the current changing circumstances and everything like that. So I think being a leader is also about being open-minded, staying open-minded, right? So like that's usually we see that in cases where, you know, it's like sometimes it's good to be able to figure out, well, what does good leadership look like? Well, like, let's look at bad leadership, quote unquote, bad leadership. And a bad leadership would be someone who is just like so stuck in their ways that it actually creates the failure for not only themselves, but the project, the team, the mission, whatever the case may be. So again, I think with leadership, it's also another thing that's also, we kind of talked about this earlier, like a leadership is being like able to like have vision, to be a visionary, to be able to see things that others don't. And sometimes I think that's why, like, you know, a lot of people, we don't really have a clear concept of what leaders are, because even within kind of like our culture, we're not really like encouraging the concept of being a visionary. Oftentimes it's consumerism. It's like, here's what you're being shown, here's what we want to be able to put in front of you, don't look beyond it, sort of thing, right? But I think naturally what we want to do is we want to be able to seek, we want to be able to explore. So again, I think being a leader is being an explorer, going into realms that have not been fully seen yet. And again, those are realms within ourselves, right? So the leader is also someone who, again, prioritizes their own development, first and foremost, because like, if we want to be a good leader, again, it's having the ability to be able to live our actions, live our truth, live our words. It's easy for someone to just like, you know, show up and give a speech and say like, here's what it means to be a great leader, or here's what it's going to look like for us to be able to do XYZ. And they give this super awesome speech that may be like scripted and verbatim and everything like that. But then outside of that, they're treating their coworkers like crap, and they're, you know, getting in fights with their like partner, and they're like stealing money and stuff like that, and they're just doing like shady stuff and everything, right? But at the same time, it's like, on one hand, it's like, oh, but they're saying all these things, right? So it's like the leadership concept is something that is a full encompassing whole of both the person and the action and their own internal work. And again, like, that's where, you know, for me, personally, through my own experience, like I love the concept of leadership, because I think, you know, for me, having these community events and doing what I do through Paradigm Shift, it is something that gives me a point of focus that actually demands accountability and consistency, and therefore makes it easier for me to be able to kind of like stay on that path, you know, like having an event once a week, getting into that rhythm. Whereas instead, if I'm just like, oh, I'll do it eventually, or maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that, maybe is like the death of efficiency. You know, nothing will get done if it's maybe going to get done, or it just gets postponed or whatever, anything like that. So, you know, choosing to be like, you know what, I want to be able to help make the world a better place. And to do that, I'm going to continue to work on myself. And I know that in working on myself, that's going to allow me to bring more of that leadership into my relationships, because that's really all what leadership is. It's relationships. And that can be, you know, like, I want to do further discussion topics within our Light Guardian roundtables, like about different relationships, about friendships, romantic relationships, those dynamics, community relationships, all those things. But yeah, you know, like, to be conscious of what those relationships are, what they look like, and how they support us, and at times how certain relationships may not support us, right? So like, a good leader is also someone who really values their time and space and energy, and can also like set healthy boundaries, both for themselves and community. You know, like, a good leader is someone who is able to just kind of like say, like, you know, like, this is when I'm available, and this is what I'm sticking to, and this is not because I don't like you, but it's because I know my own capacity, and this is going to allow me to continue to serve you the best I can within the conditions that I know work well for me. So, yeah, there's a lot of other things, again, with leadership, and you guys just kind of jump in. But again, for those of you in the YouTube chat, what are some other traits of leadership? I just wanted to take a moment here to be able to read over some of the comments here, as well. And yes, the leadership of oneself, says Lori. Lori, good to see you. And Jen says, I like the term servant leader. I think it implies supportive actions of the team instead of control. Very well said. And Lori says, and being authentic to ourselves, allowing ourselves to lead is a level 10 skill, says Jen. And then Weezy says, yes, the alchemist. Absolutely. But yeah, the other thing, Kristen, I'll pass it over to you. The other thing that I was going to say is, yeah, communication. You know, like, communication as a leader is also a very important trait. So again, like, I think leadership, depending on what kind of role we want to take on as leadership, it asks of us to continue to kind of like step into more of who we are, more of who we can be. And at the same time, like, I don't want to make it sound like you can't be an awesome person if you're not a leader, because again, I think leadership is something that takes place within the home, within the body, first and foremost. And then I think, at times, like, people will just naturally, as they do that, naturally kind of like become leaders, whether or not they even realize it. And I think that's really interesting, is that I'm sure a lot of people, they're just like kind people, creative people doing their own thing, saying something now and then. They probably don't think of themselves as leaders, but they actually are leaders. So, shout out to those of you who may not think of yourself as a leader. And I want to just be able to give you permission to say, like, actually, you know what? Like, maybe I am a leader. In fact, I choose to see myself as a leader. And with that, it gives me a path to be able to kind of aspire for more of who I can be as a leader as well. So, yeah, it's interesting. It kind of like, it's synergistic. It brings out something inside of you. Kristen, go ahead, pass over to you.
I love that. Yes. And actually it ties in exactly. I don't know if it got read or not, but it just came back into my mind, was Daniel's question about if it's relevant, and being able to ask if artists and writers like them can make the world a better place, and can we writers and artists plant seeds as well? And I just wanted to say that I think that's one of the most important ways you can be a leader, is by sharing your art and by sharing your words, because by doing so, not only are you leading by example, an expression of your own being, but you're also giving another person the experience to feel emotions in their own ways, to connect with your stories that inspire them and make them think of, life in a new way, or to be able to see things through a new perspective. And every time you do that, you are helping plant those seeds. So I just wanted to be able to say, like, thank you to all the artists in the world, and please keep sharing your art. It doesn't matter what you think. If you think you're a good artist or a good writer, if there's 1 million people and your art sells for $1,000, or if you have 3 people, including your parents, that tell you your art is amazing and it hangs on their wall, like, both are equally valid in weight when it comes to leadership and the examples that you set in the world. So just continue sharing your art and being able to lead in your own ways. It's like Brendon said, like, maybe all you did was hold the door open for someone today, or maybe all you did was smile, or maybe you just wore a really cool outfit that brought somebody inspiration. But all of those ways are being leaders. And I think it's important to be able to see that within yourself. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Kristen. Yeah, again, just chatting here, we'll keep going for probably about maybe like another less than a half hour, give or take. We'll get an idea of when we're ready to be able to wrap it up. But yeah, and Weezy, just let me know when you're ready to jump in. I'll just kind of check in with my heart and feel what I want to be able to say. But again, like, within the context of like the shift in consciousness, it's interesting, because I think for a lot of us, like, it's naturally something that's invoking this role, this call to be a leader. And so, like, for some people, they choose to step into leadership, but for others, it is something that is kind of like thrusted upon them, or is asked of them. But I still think there is a choice. I still think there is a choice when there's something inside of us that is wanting to be able to help assist with this collective shift in consciousness. And it's important to know that each of us is already helping assist with that shift in consciousness. And so I think being a leader is being able to, again, like, recognize like work that has already been done, both within ourselves, within the community, acknowledging that, respecting that, paying tribute and celebration to that. And again, like, within this role of leadership, it's something that it's also something that kind of comes from like a shared momentum. Like, I think for me, being a leader is this idea that, it's like, yeah, I may be leading things within my own way, but for each of us, like, we're carrying ourselves towards like a bigger objective, a bigger mission to be able to help, again, anchor in heart space. And so, being a leader is also being an ambassador. And the concept of being an ambassador is one that I really resonate with. This idea of, you know, like, what visions do we want to be able to bring into this world? What spaces, what art, what stories do we want to be able to bring into this world? So I think being a leader is also being able to understand the power that we already yield. I think that's kind of like a big part of it, is that, you know, if someone tells you that your actions don't make a difference and that your art is stupid and it's not going to matter and stuff like that, then right away it kind of like takes out this desire to want to do anything, to want to be a leader at all. But if we fully begin to realize that it's like, you know, it's like, yes, like, it's like our art matters, our actions matter, our stories matter, our songs matter. And sometimes we don't even realize like how much they matter until we've chosen to kind of like go outside of that comfort zone, to go into that unknown, and to be able to practice putting ourselves out there. But that is our sword, you know, like our sword as light guardians is our heart, is our kindness, is our mind, is our articulation, is our ability to be able to not only just like coordinate with other people, but to be able to coordinate our own actions towards being able to, as I said, be an ambassador for something that is inside of ourselves, to be able to be an ambassador for the etheric ideas and bring them into this tangible form. So, you know, like as leaders here within this dimension, we can get very metaphysical, where it's like, you know, what are we doing, what are we leading? Like, a lot of it is this idea of like sort of like conceptual concepts, ideas, big visions, and yet we have to lead these visions into tangible form, to be able to bring them into existence so that they can be seen, so that they can be shared, so that they can be experienced as well. And I think that's like a very like kind of like psychedelic thing. So I think, you know, for each of us, we have this opportunity on a daily basis, relatively speaking, to really be able to kind of like slow down, to practice getting good at listening to our own heart space, to our own intuition, to our own personal connection with the universe, to God, to source, whatever you want to call it. And to be able to just kind of say like, you know, like what is being asked of me, what is coming through me, what is the universe wanting me to be able to bring out into this world, what is needed, you know. And so that question, I feel is at the cornerstone of leadership, is the question, what is needed? And for those of you who are kind of like feeling like this calling to want to be able to step into leadership, ask yourself that question, what is needed? And that again, that can be like in a broad context, that could be like within a local community context, that could be within a story that's inside of you. And then when you listen to that, and then when you hear it, it's also knowing that in the process of hearing it, a path is like instantly created. There's something that becomes like a branch into this reality that can be walked upon, that can be experienced, and you can allow yourself to like if you can imagine it within context, within like, you know, like something that can happen within this physical dimension and everything like that, then it can be achieved. It can be something that you can continue to walk towards. So I think, again, you know, it's very interesting for us as leaders to be able to practice having that space and that time to just be able to take the opportunity to meditate and to reflect. And again, and that's where, like, you know, conscious leadership is like kind of like a discussion topic within the concept of leadership. But again, you know, like conscious leadership, I think really comes down to listening, what I've said before, but then also having the drive and the will, and also the support from other communities and leaders to be able to have that ability to feel motivated to do something maybe we haven't done before. And then again, to have a community that supports us in doing so. I think it's really powerful when leaders come together as leaders to help inspire other leaders, which is, again, a big thing that I like to be able to create the space for. So for everyone who's listening to this, you are a leader as much as you choose to be. And there are going to be days when you might just want to be able to like sit back and relax. And maybe those are the days when you're still working on yourself. And then there are going to be days when you're creating and you're putting yourself out there and you're living your life through your actions and words. And those matter too, as well. So it's a breath, it's an ebb and a flow, just like anything else. And it's important because all of us all of what we are doing, ripples create waves is ultimately the message of, a lot of what it is that we talk about here. So small actions can create a big difference, and one action can create like a compound effect that will eventually like change the lives of many. So never underestimate what your actions can do is also, again, like a very important thing. Anyways, if this is resonating with you guys, again, I'm just kind of like speaking from my own heart. Go ahead, drop those 11 11s. Weezy, go ahead. I'll pass it over to you. And Kristen, feel free to jump back in anytime. And again, we'll get close to wrapping this up within the next little bit, but no rush. Go ahead, Weezy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I love your question, like what is needed. And I have recently oftentimes found myself asking, like, what do I need? And in those answers, I've come up with so many ideas for what I can do for others. And so, because it's like that idea of like, we are all one. And if I'm experiencing something, if there's something that I need for myself, there are chances that the chances are like there's other people who need that as well. So like, I think we need to give ourselves more credit for, what our own answers are to those questions, and understand that like there are times where there are spaces where we can step into, we can become what we need, and then we can be that for other people as well. And I think that that's something that leaders can do very effectively, because they understand that everyone has like commonalities when it really comes down to it. So I do really like that question. Like, what is needed? Like, what do I need? Because like, I'm pretty sure there's somebody else who's going to need that thing too. And once you can like figure it out, you can help lead others to that space. And then they can see that like you figured it out, and that they can also lead others to that space as well. And yeah, I'm probably going to jump off soon. So I just wanted to like express my gratitude for you holding this space. I loved this conversation, and it feels really good to like be back in this space and connecting with everyone here again, everyone both on video and in the chat, and whoever watches this later. Like it feels really good to connect again.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Weezy. I'm glad you were able to make it tonight. And absolutely, how many more minutes do you have? Just to get an idea. Leaving shortly, you said?
I'll probably stay on another like five or 10 minutes or so.
Okay, cool,
yeah.
cool. Sweet. Yeah. And again, just with what you're saying, it's kind of like sparking things. And again, like that's the beauty of like collectively, when we come together as leaders, we get to dream bigger dreams, like dream collective dreams. So again, I was just writing down some questions based on what we were talking about here, going back to the question of like what is needed. Again, it's also very powerful for us to ask like other questions, of a question being something such as, how can I serve? So I think, again, like a leader is naturally someone who wants to be able to help, who wants to be able to serve. And I think that's a very noble thing that a lot of us carry inside of us. And again, at some point, sometimes we don't always have the confidence to feel like we have anything to offer. But then the other question that we can ask is, what can I offer? Right. And so again, like, within that, it's always going to be context, right? So, I mean, like sometimes what I can offer today is comfort for my child. What I can offer tomorrow is a super awesome YouTube video. What I can offer the day after that is helping a person at the grocery store, or like helping my neighbor with something like that. So again, like leadership is again just like working towards like making the world a much more conscious and intertwined place where we're paying attention to the needs of others. And when those needs are not being met, we can choose actively as leaders to be able to say, hey, I can offer something to be able to help you meet those needs. And so again, the other question that I wrote is, who is looking to me for leadership? And again, that's going to be different. For some people, it's going to be their children, it's going to be their siblings, it's going to be their family members. And if you're not entirely sure who's looking to you for leadership, that's okay. Because at the same time, like it's also a motivation to perhaps kind of like get yourself in front of some eyes, and then people will see that, and to know that each of us here has a story. As Weezy was saying, this is very important what Weezy was saying here. Each of us has a story that can help lead others towards a realization. So for example, if you've gone through something very challenging, if you've gone through healing, if you've gone through trauma and you've come out the other side of that, and maybe you're still healing, right? It's always a process and everything like that. For you to share your story, for someone else to see that, who may be at the other end of the spectrum of that story, they'll look at you and they'll say like, holy crap, not only does that inspire me, but that it also gives me a goal. It shows me what's achievable. It gives me hope. And I think hope is actually a word that hasn't been said this broadcast that I think is very powerful. You know, like for me, when within the work that I do for Paradigm Shift, that's one thing I'm like, what do I like? I want to be able to like give people hope. You know, in times when the world is chaotic and dark and stuff like that, let's give them hope. Let's give them hope that there are kind people out there, that there are inspired, magical, real world superheroes. And you can get as epic as you want, but at the same time, you can keep it as simple as you want. Literally just back to acts of kindness. And then the other thing I was just going to say here real quick is, you know, I think what's important for leadership is also giving ourselves goals. I think, and sometimes that goal could be, you know what, today I'm just going to take things slow. Like that could, like that's the thing, right? Like leadership is not always this like big, strong, like fast thing. Leadership is just the ability to be aware of what is needed and then meeting that need. And if your needs today are to be able to take things slow, then lead yourself into that direction and work towards that goal. And at the end of the day, you can be like, I did it. Anyways, Weezy, I know you have to head off soon. I know Kristen's probably got some stuff to say, but if you're heading out, just give us a wave and we'll say farewell. So cool. Go ahead, Kristen, jump right in before Weezy jumps out, and then you can say your goodbyes and we'll keep going and finish off.
Weezy, my grandma called for birthday wishes, so I will have to read on the replay to catch your amazing wisdom, because I'm sure it was golden. But thank you for sharing it. And I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate the thought of being able to see from a perspective of who is potentially looking up to you, because you never really do know. It's like I said, like you could be walking down the street and somebody could be inspired by you. And so like, yeah, like, I guess, I don't know, I guess like for me, that creates a little bit of pressure of like, oh my gosh, I could be leading at any point in time. But I encourage you to feel empowered by it, to be able to see like, you know, it's exciting, it's an opportunity, like how, like see it as like, how can I choose to lead in this moment by choosing to wear my hat, or by choosing to dance and sing, or whatever your particular devotion may be. But yeah, sometimes you have to do it scared, and it's okay, because you're not alone, and your wisdom is going to be exactly what it needs to be for the people that need to hear it. So yeah, that's all I say. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Weezy, did you want to say farewell, and if you're heading out in a minute?
Yeah, I'm gonna head out. And yeah, like I agree, Kristen. I think it's very empowering to remember that we could be leading in any moment and not realize it. And that can lead to a lot of fear, but I think the other side of that is, yeah, feeling that empowerment to be a good leader, and yeah, follow, like what Brendon has been saying, follow through with what our own truth is, and being like embodying through our actions that leader that we want to see in the world. Like who do we want to, like what kind of leaders like do we want to see, and then embodying that. And I think that it's a very powerful concept when we realize that like anybody could be watching and like following in our footsteps because of that. So yeah, again, thank you so much for the space. I was so happy to join in tonight, and I'll definitely see everyone in the upcoming ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Weezy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Hugs to your dog as well. So.
Oh yes, thanks. Bye.
Cool. See you later. Cool. So we'll get close to wrapping things up here. Chris and I will just hold down the floor, and we'll just kind of move into some closing thoughts. And again, you know, something that Kristen was saying, which is actually like I made a social media meme about this a while back, but it was basically this idea of like, be a leader even when no one is watching, you know? So I think that's, again, it's like leadership is a practice, it's a routine, it's something that takes like a little bit like a muscle. You begin to grow it, you begin to develop it, but then after a while it begins to become something that is second nature, and you actually begin to desire it. But it is interesting that oftentimes for a lot of people, leadership goes hand in hand with the concept of fear, the concept of like, you know, like doing something they haven't done before, being uncomfortable, being seen, being criticized, being under the microscope, you know, like being judged, being made fun of even, and everything like that. But at the same time, you know, it's like it's in those moments that like that's actually a part of the medicine, is for us to be able to realize that, you know, like we are both with that and above it, you know, like some of that is amazing feedback, and I think as a leader we want to be able to be open to that, but also at the same time, you know, it's also understanding that sometimes when you put yourself out there and you're seen by people and you're doing something that's weird, something that's magical, something that's not normal, you're also an easy target for people, and it's easy for people to kind of like toss their projections your way and to be able to say like, stop that, get back in line, sit down, stop being like so different and stuff like that. But again, you know, like lo and behold, if one person does that and then other people say like, well, if they're dancing, I'm gonna dance too, and then like the warden's like, no, get down, stop dancing. And then the next person's like, well, I'm dancing because they're dancing. And then everyone starts dancing, and then it's a big party. And then eventually the warden joins in too, right? It's like it's some metaphor or something there, you can imagine. But again, you know, it's just like in those moments, it's so much of it is just, again, it's about being true to our authentic self, which is a lot of what we have talked about. And also, again, like being a leader goes hand in hand with courage, hand in hand with being brave. And, you know, courage is not being without fear, it is taking action in spite of fear in a lot of ways. So again, you know, like there are days where, you know, like back in the day, if I was like doing free hugs and stuff like that, some days I just like I'd be like, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. But then I would like push through that, and then I would do it anyways. And then like awesome synchronicities would kick off, and I'd be like, whoa. So I think like it's kind of like this thing that with leadership, like the universe loves courage. To quote Terrence McKenna, the universe loves courage. The universe loves leadership, and it loves heart-based leadership. So don't just lead people into some sort of like cryptocurrency scheme or something like that, because you can do that. You can lead people in shady directions and take advantage of people and all sorts of crappy stuff. But at the same time, if you're acting from your heart, if you're living from your heart, if you're speaking through your heart, if you're listening through your heart, and you're acting on behalf of this kind of like higher will of the universe as a light guardian, to be able to say like, what I am doing is directing things towards a higher shift in consciousness, and I align myself with the good of all beings in service to the collective whole. If you state that as like an affirmation for yourself and then follow through with those actions, you know, again, the universe is going to see that, and it's also going to respond to it, and synchronicities are going to kick off, and people are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're going to say, hey, I love that thing that you did, I love that post, I love that video, I love that event, I really enjoyed this. And then that's the universe's way of kind of like planting these little like seeds of affirmation that eventually grow and they nurture. And that's, I think, what's important for us is that as leaders, you know, like celebrating and nurturing and watering each other's roots is so important. And that's exactly why doing these light guardian roundtables is something I feel inspired to do, because, you know, like for myself, leadership is going to be at the core of every single light guardian roundtable that we do. It's at the core of Paradigm Shift Central. It's a community helping others step into their own roles as conscious leaders, whatever that means, personally, on a collective level, as creators, whatever it means. And so, you know, like this is something that I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I'll pass over to Kristen, and then we'll get close to wrapping this up. And it's something that is ongoing, you know, like the talk that we do here, it's a big part of it. And now we get to kind of like live through it, and we get to be able to kind of like bring that into our actions, both offline and online and inline, so to speak. So, but yeah, Kristen, let's move into kind of closing thoughts. I know you're running out of battery on your phone and everything like that. So
yeah, no, Brendon, as you were talking, I got a vision of, actually, this is not something I just made up. This is something that one of my teachers gave me. But when you're a leader, it's like there's a million fish in the sea, but you are the fish that's in the fishbowl that everybody gets to see. And you're still swimming like all the other fish in the sea. You're still going about your day and doing your thing. But you're in an opportunity for everyone to kind of have this 360 view, or even just being able to, you can relate it to like the emotional aspect of things, is it's like anything you do is amplified times 10. And so being able to see that as an opportunity of accountability, but then also as a place of like excitement of being able to see like, yeah, I can be able to do that by just being able to be me. Like, I don't have to try to be a bird. I'm just being a fish swimming in the bowl. So that's
very true. Very true. Exactly. And that's what we were talking about. Like, leadership is going to look different for everyone. Like, don't try to do something if, just because somebody else is doing it. Like, find the way that works for you. Find your unique own expression of truth, and then bring that out into the world. And like, that is enough. I think that's important for people to hear that. It's like you are enough. That is enough. And it's always great when you can continue to strive for more, but don't think that where you are right now isn't enough, because where you are right now is a great place, even if it's just to take that first step. And yeah, it's really powerful, because I think oftentimes we underestimate the power of our actions. Shout out to Mr. Nolan. They actually just left a comment on my Instagram as I was doing this, and they said, "Gotta run, man, but whenever you're feeling a bit down, just remember that you have a very powerful impact on so many lives. Truly awesome stuff. You'll always have a place in my heart. Love you." And Mr. Nolan, I appreciate that. And I'm sure, like, for those of you who have been following me through Paradigm Shift, I'm sure you guys would probably have similar sentiments. And if not just for me, for many of the creators involved, for Kristen, for Weezy, for many of us have been in the presence of each other's leadership, even if it's just been in individual conversations. And again, I really appreciate all the people in this community who show up in that way, because again, like, with these events that I'm hosting, think of these as a chance for us to be able to practice leadership, to embody more of our leadership role as well. And so, it's interesting, because it's like, I'll just say this and we'll get close to wrapping it up, and then we'll be done, because I know Kristen's battery is about to die, and we'll just do a very short meditation. Leadership is being conscious of how your actions will make others feel, because how you make them feel is what will truly inspire them, is what they will remember, right? Like, remember, like, that teacher that you had when you were younger, you might not even remember their name, but you remember how they felt, or that coach, or that video, or that something, or whatever it is, or whoever you're tuned into, or something like that. It's like pay attention to that. Pay attention to what your actions do, how they make others feel, how others make you feel, and then continue to learn from that. And let's do our best to be able to help others feel in ways that are going to continue to inspire and uplift, and to help them see their own worth, to help them see the magic that they carry, and to help inspire them to continue to step into their roles as leaders. So as leaders, we can inspire more leaders, including the youth, and then those youth become future leaders, which inspire more leaders. And again, I think it's just a natural part of humans. I think as humans, we're very interesting creatures when it comes to our ability to inspire one another. So let's live that possibility together. Kristen, closing thoughts, and then I'll just do a little meditation. If you have to jump off early, not a problem.
I just want to share like encouragement to go out into the world and just love on each other. Like, if you see somebody that inspires you, tell them. If you like somebody's outfit, let them know. If you see something that's like really crafty and it inspires you, share that, because those are the things, like those little moments of like that artist that has been working for years and feeling absolutely unnoticed, and then in that moment you say like, wow, your artwork changed my whole perspective. I'm feeling inspired and encouraged moving forward. Like, that might just give that artist the exact little bit of heart love that they need to continue creating that art. So just keep going out into the world and being your amazing, awesome self, and sharing love in all the amazing ways that you do. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the space. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yes. As leaders, let us not underestimate the ability for us to see others, and to know that in them being seen, it can really make an impact on them. It can really just kind of like be that little bit extra that's just like, oh, like, I'm not going to give up. Like, for a second there, I thought I was going to give up. And then one person comes along, they're like, hey, I think what you're doing is really cool. I really like what you wrote. I really like that picture. I really like what you said. I really appreciate your actions. So gratitude as leaders, use that. That is one of our tools, and do it not just because it's like a tactic. Do it from a place of genuine authenticity, because we as humans thrive when we are in spaces of gratitude towards each other. Shout out to Samantha. Samantha synchronistically just tuned in on TikTok, says, I'm so excited I got to catch your live, even though it wasn't from the beginning. I really needed to hear this. I appreciate you. So there we go. Again, just another example that you never know like how much your actions might make a difference to one another. So yeah, we'll wrap this up. Samantha, and for anybody else just watching this on TikTok, click the link in my profile and you can find the YouTube recording from the beginning if you guys missed it. And let's just finish off with a quick little meditation. And yeah, at the end of the day, this conversation is ongoing. What does leadership mean to you? How can you continue to embody leadership within your own practice, within your own space? And yeah, I just appreciate every single one of you for just being a part of this conversation and being the leaders that you already are. So I'll just take a moment here to just drop into our heart space, and we'll just do a quick little meditation, and then we'll be done for today. Everybody here, when you're ready, just go ahead and gently close your eyes. And right now, as you become aware of your breath, I just want you to be able to feel yourself being led by your breath. Soft, gentle inhales and soft, gentle exhales. And as you allow yourself to just be present with your breath, notice how your breath in itself can lead you into a place of softness, into a place of gentleness. And I want you to be able to take this opportunity to be able to just acknowledge the leader inside of you, whatever that means to you. To acknowledge the fact that there is a seed inside of you that is being nurtured, that is being watered, that is growing. For some of us, it's already sprouted, but nonetheless, it is something that is continuing to emerge each and every single day. And it is inside of each and every single one of us. It is a seed, it is a flame, it is a light. And so as you breathe here, I want you to just imagine this light just kind of becoming a little bit brighter. And as you gently exhale, just imagining this light being something that we carry into our actions, into our words, into our creativity. And so this light, it is not just yours alone. It is the will of higher consciousness, the will of source, the will of God, the will of this reality doing what it can to become more self-aware, to wake itself up, and to live from a place of heart-inspired joy, and to be able to deeply connect with the magic that we already are. The leader within me sees and honors the leader within you. The light guardian within me sees and honors the light guardian within you. And so from here, let us just gently imagine all of us sitting again at this round table as fellow light guardians, travelers, journeyers coming from far and wide. And yet here we are at this table to be able to share wisdom towards a common goal, to be able to help shift consciousness. And as we look around this table once more to all the people, those of us in the Zoom and those of us listening and those of us who we haven't even met yet, seeing their face, seeing their heart, feeling inspired, just taking a moment to be able to express our gratitude and just saying thank you to each and every single one of them. Through their presence, they see you. And they see you seeing them, and thus in turn, both of us continue to grow. How will they lead you? How will you lead them? How will we lead together? Let us live this question. And so just concluding here, just in a moment of oneness, just take this opportunity to just drop into your heart space a little bit deeper. I'll stop talking. and just be in this space where you can just feel the energy that we've cultivated here tonight at the round table before we bring it with us out and beyond. Go ahead and just breathe within to your heart space for a moment of silence. This world is a better place because you are in it. This world needs more leaders like you, like us. And so conclude here with any gratitude from your heart, expressing it to the people of the circle. You can imagine us all kind of just like standing up and giving each other hugs, and go ahead and give yourself a nice hug in this moment if you wish. Nice big inhale, nice soft exhale. Another one of those. Inhale. We'll carry this inspiration with us out and beyond, our hearts feeling full, our energy feeling activated, our minds aware, our heart open. And from here, when you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to your physical body as you wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and gently open your eyes and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you again, everyone, so much for being a part of our Light Guardian Roundtable. It's 9:06 on the clock at the time that I'm recording this, which is a nice synchronicity. That's like a nice little like omen from the universe there, giving me a thumbs up that we're right where we're meant to be. And I remind you that you are right where you need to be in order to get to where you're going. So be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself and others, and continue to work towards the leadership roles that you can take on, that you are already carrying. And remember, be a leader even when no one is looking. So we appreciate you guys. And yeah, with that said, I'll just pass over to Kristen. Any final words, and then I'll just do a full, just closing house notes, and then we'll be done for today. So Kristen, thank you again.
Thank you, Brendon. That meditation was absolutely gorgeous. And I just wanted to thank you again for the round table imagery. I loved being able to see us all as equal leaders that have very beautiful wisdom coming from our own far off, distant lands that can come together and share that common goal. So thank you for that, Brendon. That was really beautiful. And just lots of inspiration tonight. Really appreciate these beautiful sacred spaces and the chance to connect with community. So thank you. And namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. And a reminder for those of you who tune into this, if you guys aren't already connected with Kristen, you can find Kristen and as well as Elloise on Instagram. I'll put their links into the show notes on YouTube. Again, you can find Kristen at Pin Oak Rising, and then Elloise at Weezy for Sheezy. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. And a reminder, if you guys have enjoyed this broadcast and you're listening on Spotify or YouTube or anything, this is also an invitation for you to be a part of ongoing Light Guardian roundtables and conscious media creator circles and other events that we'll be hosting ongoing to be able to help support your journey as a leader, as a conscious creator, and as a seeker, as a light guardian. So if you'd like to be a part of those, go ahead and join our Discord server to stay updated with events that I'm hosting as well as other events going on. And if you haven't already yet, check out our Patreon, and that's where you can join our membership to be able to get access to the Zoom meetings that we do, as well as all of the other exclusive content that I got going on there, including the Awakening Anthology, which we'll be releasing in chapters ongoing that Lacey and I are working on. So I'm excited for that. So thank you again to our Patreon supporters. Thank you again to everyone for all your support in all forms. And on behalf of myself and the other light guardians and paradigm shifters out there, I love you guys. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for being the leaders that you are. And until next time, much love and keep it shifty. We will see you guys in the future. So bye, everyone. Go ahead. You can say bye, Kristen. Bye, guys. We love you guys. Love you. Until next time.
Bye. Love you guys.
All right. See you next time. Much love, everyone. Thursday, 7 p.m. See you then. EDT. Love you guys. All right. Cool.